The Space Between Us. Why He Needs Space. By Life Trooper. When does love start to feel like a burden? For many men, the weight of being everything to everyone, provider, protector, and partner, leaves little room for themselves. But what happens when the person you love the most feels like the one you need space from? And how do you rebuild a marriage when the distance feels like it's growing every day? Chapter 1. The Distance. Lila sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes lingering on the half-open door. Through it, she could see Daniel in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, staring into his coffee cup like it held the answers to life's toughest questions. She missed him. Not the man standing there now, quiet and withdrawn, but the version of him who used to make her laugh until she cried. Lately, conversations had become rare, laughter even rarer. She felt the growing distance between them like a physical wall. "Is something wrong?" she had asked the night before, curling up beside him on the couch. Daniel sighed and avoided her gaze. "I don't know, Lila. I feel overwhelmed." That word, overwhelmed, sat heavy on her chest. She wanted to ask what he meant, but a part of her was afraid of the answer. Chapter 2. The Pressure Cooker. Daniel wasn't sure when the pressure had started building. Maybe it was the day his boss handed him 3 new projects with impossible deadlines, or maybe it was when Lila began asking questions he didn't have answers to. He loved his wife. He loved his job. But lately, he felt like he was failing at both. At work, he was the go-to problem solver. At home, he was expected to be steady, reliable, and present. But what did you do when the problems you were supposed to solve felt like your own unraveling? When Lila asked him how he was feeling, he knew she meant well. But the truth was, he didn't know how to explain it. He felt like a balloon stretched too thin, one wrong word away from bursting. "I just need some time to myself," he thought. But every time he tried to say it, it came out wrong. And then they fought. Chapter 3. The Argument. The tipping point came one Sunday evening. Lila had planned a cozy dinner at home. Candles, his favorite meal, and a movie. She wanted to reconnect, to feel close again. But Daniel didn't come home until late. He'd gone for a solo hike, needing the quiet of the woods to clear his head. "Where were you?" Lila asked as he walked through the door. "I needed some air," he said, shrugging off his jacket. "You could have told me," she said, setting the table with sharp movements. "I didn't think I needed to announce a walk," he replied, irritation creeping into his voice. The tension exploded. "You don't talk to me anymore," Lila said, her voice shaking. "I feel like I'm trying to hold this marriage together by myself." "I'm trying too, Lila," Daniel shot back. "But I can't fix everything. I feel like I can't even breathe." His words hung heavy in the air, leaving them both stunned and raw. Chapter 4. The Reflection. That night, Lila lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His words echoed in her mind. "I feel like I can't even breathe." She thought she had been doing everything right, planning time together, asking how he was feeling, trying to be supportive. But maybe her way of trying to help was making things worse. She grabbed her phone and started searching for advice, landing on an article about emotional needs in relationships. One line stood out to her. "Sometimes, the space your partner asks for isn't about leaving. It's about finding themselves again." Chapter 5. The Conversation. The next morning, Lila found Daniel sitting on the back porch, staring out at the frost-covered lawn. "I've been thinking," she said, wrapping herself in a blanket and sitting beside him. Daniel glanced at her warily, as if bracing for another argument. "I don't want you to feel like I'm smothering you," she said softly. I want to understand what you need." Daniel let out a long breath, his shoulders relaxing. "I need space, Lila. Not from you, but from everything. Work, expectations, even myself sometimes. It's like I'm carrying so much that I can't think straight." Lila's throat tightened. "I don't want to add to that weight. I just want to know how to support you." He looked at her. really looked at her for the first time in weeks. "Thank you," he said, "for saying that. I don't know how to fix this overnight, but I want to try." Chapter 6. The Balance. Over the following weeks, they found a rhythm. Daniel started taking time for himself, a solo hike on Saturdays, journaling in the mornings, and quiet evenings without distractions. In return, he made an effort to let Lila in. He shared his thoughts when he felt ready, and reassured her that his need for space wasn't a sign of rejection. Lila learned to give him room without taking it personally. She joined a yoga class, reconnected with friends, and found her own ways to cope with the fear of disconnection. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but they began to see each other as partners again, not opponents in an invisible tug-of-war. One evening, as they sat together on the back porch, Daniel reached for her hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me the space to figure things out," he said, "and for being here when I was ready." Lila smiled, leaning into him. "We're in this together. Always." The frost melted in the warmth of the rising sun, and the space between them became something sacred, a place where love and understanding could grow.